It is good that we are here. Let us build 3 tents. Tents. Camping. Hate it. I'm not a big camper, which is the reason why I probably never became a Boy Scout. Don't like camping. My idea of camping is a 2-star motel. Camping. It involves lots of extra work, as you and I both know, because we've all probably had an experience or 2, maybe 3 or 4. And for all of those of you who are here this morning who love camping, please know I still love you, and I hope you love me as well. But camping requires, of course, you and I getting out of our comfort zone. It requires you and I to go out of the confines of our home or a dwelling where we can feel both secure but also nice and warm, and where we have a nice bed. It is good that we are here. Let us build 3 tents. 1 for you, 1 for Moses, and 1 for Elijah. Tents. They're a lot of work to put up, and they require that you and I have some good, long stakes. You know, to drive in the ground, to anchor the tent so that it doesn't fly away with you and I in it. So on this second Sunday of Lent, we hear about Peter wanting to hammer the stakes into the mountain. Because after all, there's this glory that he and James and John have been able to witness with their own eyes. And it's good that they're there. So what does Peter want to do? Hammer the stakes right there in the ground. Because he wants to stay there. But Jesus doesn't want any of that. Rather, he wants Peter, James, and John, and he wants you and I to take the stakes as you and I go up the mountain with our Lord on this second Sunday of Lent, and you and I are invited to take our hammer and our stakes and our tent, and you and I are invited to hammer the stakes not into this beautiful solid ground, but rather you and I are invited to hammer the stakes into the very mystery of Christ himself. And that, as we know, provides another whole level of uncertainty. And at times we can feel as though there's insecurity. For we know what the mystery of Christ means, don't we? We know that the mystery of Christ entails an uphill, up the mountain climb, which involves service, which will include some suffering, which will include some blood, sweat, and literally tears. Yes, the mystery of Christ is unique and it's challenging, and as we are afforded the beautiful vision today, it is also one of beauty. Because once we take the climb, once we go through the suffering, once we experience the pains that this life oftentimes affords you and I, if we can just remain faithful with our stakes hammered into the mystery of Christ, well then we get those glimpses, even in this life, of this incredible glory of our God that's made real and manifest to us oftentimes on a daily basis. Why you and I see this vision, this glory, and it's ever before us, and oftentimes when we have those experiences, you know what I'm talking about, those mountaintop experiences. It's parents welcoming their first child into their lives and realizing that now their view of the world has changed immensely. Isn't that what happens when you and I climb up a big, tall hill or a mountain? Wouldn't you agree with me that the view is incredible? Absolutely incredible. We can see things like we've never seen them before. And certainly we can see things much differently than if we were just standing on ground level. That's what mountaintop experiences afford us. That's what you and I, who are willing to hammer our stakes into the mystery of Christ as Abraham did, as our ancestors did in the faith, why then with obedience and with trust, once we continue to climb the mountain, we get those mountaintop experiences. Yes, even in this life. The parent that welcomes the child, the people who fall in love for the very first time, why their view of themselves and one another in the world, it changes. It's beautiful. And our eyes are opened to the incredible, the unthinkable, the beautiful, the glory of our God ever before us. But it involves that you and I are willing to get out our camping gear. The season of Lent of these 40 days offers you and I the opportunity to grab our tent, to grab our stakes, to grab whatever it is we need, and to join with Jesus going up the mountain. And as we do so, we recognize, as Peter, James, and John did, that even in moments of glory that oftentimes fade, why you and I need to be ready to pull up stakes and to remain firmly planted in the mystery of Christ and to be able to go wherever God is calling you and I to go, to places, to people, to events, to circumstances, to situations where you and I will need to bring, having hammered our stakes into the mystery of Christ, the very life and forgiveness and compassion and mercy of our God. And when we bring that with us and offer it to others on the journey, we realize, like Peter, James, and John, that when the moments of glory, when the mountaintop experiences fade, we are still not alone. Because Mark tells us that once Peter, James, and John got their bearings about them, they looked up and they saw no one there except Jesus. Jesus with them. You see, that's what it means when we hammer our stakes into the mystery of Christ and are willing to join our sufferings to His, our joys to His, our accomplishments to His, our life to His. Because then we have those moments where our view of the world in which we live, the view of ourselves, the view of our neighbors, the people, those who are strangers in our midst, why the view changes. And we look up and with our own eyes, we see an incredible thing. No, we see an incredible person standing in our midst, together with us. Why we see Christ.